I'm really very excited about today's talk, which is part of the Crosscuts sort of a subsection of the talks program. Crosscuts are one of I would say for both Devika and myself, Crosscuts are a favorite part of the talks program because it's really exciting to look at this incredible array of films that the festival has brought together and think about pairings of filmmakers who we can put in a room with a moderator to dig into the sort of connective threads that inspired us to put the films in conversation. And today in particular, I am really pleased to have with us two of the filmmakers from this year's Spotlight section, the director of Pavements, Alex Ross Perry, and the director of TWST, Things We Said Today, Andrei Ujică. Give them a round of applause. If you've had the opportunity to see one or both of their films, you know that describing either film as a music documentary wouldn't be inaccurate, but it would be far from complete or sort of truly representative of what these films are doing. With the band Pavement and the Beatles, respectively, these two films sort of take the music and the cultural moment in which these two really iconic and moment-defining bands existed to sort of build an inquiry, an exploration of what fandom is and means and what the relationship between an audience and a band can be and how it interacts with its sort of social contexts in which it's springing up. And in any event, I think this conversation will touch on all of this and more, but I'm just so excited that we managed to bring these two visionary directors together, and that the conversation will be moderated by Vikram Murthi, a writer and editor whose film and music criticism has appeared in all kinds of publications, including The Nation, Filmmaker Magazine, Reverse Shot, and Vulture, along with many more. So I'm going to leave it there. I would just ask you as a courtesy to others to silence any electronic devices, make sure that they are not going to buzz if you can. And without any further ado, please join me in welcoming to the stage Alex Ross Perry, Andrei Ujică, and Vikram Murthi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah. I think you yeah.
Oh, do you want to be in the middle?
Yeah.
I see.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
All right, now we have musical chairs done. Thank you guys so much for coming. Really appreciate it. Super excited. Just before everyone gets settled, like this is a really cool turnout, and thank you guys. I think what's interesting about both these movies, just right off the bat, I'm gonna ask kind of a broad question that I think will hopefully spur some answers, is that they both feel very personal in their own ways. I think for Andrei's film, it's very much a personal generational look at a very specific time in global culture, global music culture. And I think for you, it's also very much a personal take on kind of a very small sort of, well, a cult band. And I'm curious, whoever wants to go first, like, what was the inspiration for making this film? You?
Oh, you can go first.
Yeah.
Your movie played first, so.
Yeah.
Did play first.
So.
Yeah. And the Beatles were first. Yeah.
The Beatles were first,
Yeah.
yes.
Where the inspiration come? Yeah. In 2010, when I finished the autobiography of Nicolae Ceausescu, which was the last film on a trilogy about the end of the Eastern Bloc.
Yep.
I was thinking a few years before already, and now I made a long introspection of a kind of my historical biography to understand all this. And I told me it's the time to make introspection about the emotional biography. And my thought was that in the second half of the 20th century, it was not only the end of the Soviet bloc as a major historical, socio-cultural shift, but also the emergence of the mass culture mainly in two major aspects. The revolution of the pop music in the middle of the 60s, and the emergence of the sport as a mass cultural phenomenon. Not in the first time with the Olympic Games, how it was intended, but there's with the explosion of the general, very deep interest for football.
Yeah.
Not American football. Yeah. And then I told me, okay, I will try to make two films, one about the pop revolution and one about soccer. And when you are thinking about make a film about the pop revolution, it's not difficult to come to the idea to take the greatest band of this phenomenon and to try to understand, to analyze the entire phenomenon. That it was.
No, for sure.
Well, I think I'm glad you went first because now I know how to give a better answer. You know, like just because without rehashing what the movie is, like similar to what you're saying, like what was like I like the band that the movie is about, but like they're not my favorite band. I don't think like that's the person who should make such a thing. Mm-hmm. But what I liked, like I liked them a lot. I saw them on their tour, 15 years ago. But what I liked was, to me, the story of this band that played their first performance in November '89 and broke up in December '99. I just dug in on that and I was like, what they represent is a better subject for a movie than what they literally are.
Yeah.
Because what they literally are is fairly familiar by most small-scale music narratives, indie music. And that story could be told, and it has been,
Sure.
and it's somewhat undramatic. But what I like what I want to say the movie actually is about is that they're a vessel to fill up with this other story about culture, specifically American, independent, music culture, Generation X culture, throughout the 1990s. And that story to me, you could tell that story 10 different ways, but I just thought like, I'm going to tell it through, like a prism, all surrounding different stories about the same subject. And that became much more compelling to me because that's a movie. Like that's not just a story. That's a movie to be made. That's not like a 90-minute streaming documentary structure. That's justification for like a film that is visual and narrative and full of ideas that complement the nuts and bolts narrative of the band. But you're not just doing that. And it just became like, just doing the story is not enough.
Right. Yes.
I think both of these films are actually a very good look into how music can shape a certain era or a certain identity. And I'm curious, especially with things we said today, I do think that there is an interesting complement between both your films is that you use the Beatles and Beatlemania as a way to kind of look outward, kind of gaze up. And I think, not to make yours sound navel-gazing, but I do think you burrow deep into a band, but both of your films do have this idea of like capturing a moment in time. Also, interestingly, both the Beatles and Pavement lasted 10 years, which I think is like a very interesting, very interesting thing to think about. But I'm curious, like, what were the conversations when you were making the film about how, either about structure or in terms of perspective?
Yeah, when I began to think about the structure, how to take the kind of abstract idea and to transform this in our artistic product. Yeah.
Sure.
So one of my first thoughts was very near what Alex said. I didn't want to make another Beatles movie, you know. Yeah, and I don't like the biopics. I cannot. And I remember that my grandmother read all the time when I was very small, romanticized biographies. Stefan Zweig was an Austrian writer. He wrote the biography of Marie Antoinette, etc. So, and then when I was in the school at the very beginning, my teacher, old ladies, they read ecstatically Irving Stone, the biography of Michelangelo, Agony and Ecstasy, and things like that. And then, decades later, Hollywood took this and made, as always, the things cheaper and cheaper. And then you have the biography of Freddie Mercury and Elton John, etc., etc. So, it was another reason also, because I was thinking for years, celebrity lives, they have only two alternatives, to be tragical or boring. Yeah. And none of these alternatives is the tragical one. Yes, you can make some art of this, but of boredom, not. In the case of the Beatles, they sadly they have the two aspects. They have also the two tragic guys, and the other two also. So. That's why at the very beginning, it was started all with some negation. I knew what I don't want to make, and after that, I find it also what I wanted to. Yeah.
I think Malcolmus probably falls in the boring over tragic side ultimately. But.
Yeah, extremely. I mean. I spent weeks chasing him to interview him 4 years ago, and he finally connected. And I said, "What have you been doing?" He goes, "Just watching basketball." Okay. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like watching your film, I go in knowing very little. It's a Beatles documentary, not a British filmmaker, not an American filmmaker, and then the final act, which if I can say, like. I'm a huge World's Fair buff. I love it. And so I didn't know that was coming. And that part to me was where the movie became just kind of transcendently fascinating, because I love the World's Fairs, especially the New York ones.
Yeah.
Because my grandfather worked at them. He worked at the 64 one that you show in the movie. And I've always felt a huge fascination with it, and getting to see that footage looking that good. I was like, well, I didn't expect it. In 90 minutes, I was going to go from Beatlemania to the World's Fair, and then I guess I'd never thought about I guess these were just happening at the exact same time, 1,000 feet away, and I got really excited thinking about the new window that opened up for me into something I love, which is World's Fair history, and something I like, I guess, which is Beatles history. But so what we did to answer your question, when I conceived of the movie, which if you haven't seen it, it's basically like 5 fingers on a fist. And when I initially thought of it, the segments that I thought of, which are a jukebox musical being put on, a very cliche Hollywood biopic, the building and staging of a museum, following the band on their contemporary documentary journey, and an archival journey. I had it in my head that these would be chapters, and I was talking about the movie structurally like the Paul Schrader movie Mishima.
Yeah.
Where I was like, you'll just do 5 different chapters presenting 5 different views of the same subject matter. And you'll move from one to the other. And a lot of the conception of the movie was based on the idea that that's how the story would be told. And then as soon as we started filming them, it became clear that that would never work as an edit at all. Like you'd be asking a lot of the audience to just, because then you run the risk of, oh, I loved that part of the movie. I'm sad that it's over and there's 90 more minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
Or like, when are we going to get to this part? I didn't realize that this movie was this way. I really kind of came here because I heard this. So then we were like, well, then that structure just won't work. And then it went from talking about the entire structure in terms of Mishima to talking about the entire structure in terms of Dunkirk.
Right.
Hugely influential as an edit and as a structure. Because that's, for people who maybe remember the film less well than I do, like, it's 3 concurrent stories in that film that takes place over a week, a day, and an hour. And they all have the same climax, and they all culminate at the same time. And I was just like, I've seen the movie half a dozen times, and I'm like, I still don't understand how that works, both on this page and as an edit. And I was like, to the editor, Robert Greene, I was like, that's what we need to do. One of these stories takes place from 1989 to the present. One of these stories takes place over a few weeks in the spring of 2022. The scripted, like that takes place over a matter of days. The museum takes place, it was open, the ribbon cutting, it was 4 hours.
Right.
And I was like, we have Dunkirk it's standing right there for us. We need to find a way to make all of these spinning plates move at different speeds, but reach the same crescendo of narrative and climax at the same time, which is virtually impossible because you don't have control over anything, like if it doesn't reach the climax, it doesn't reach the climax, then you're falsifying it. And the band's narrative doesn't follow a structure that's helpful for us.
Right.
So it was a fun challenge. I'm glad we're not editing it anymore. It took 2 years of fairly consistent editing to get to yesterday.
I do think it's interesting that, I think both of your films take the viewer on a journey, but it's a very chronological structure. Both your film follows like a day leading up to the Shea Stadium, 3 days,
Friday to Sunday.
Sunday, and then yours takes place like, in terms of watching it, in terms of like the band's history being the foundation, you are going from like 85 to like 99 in some way, shape, or form. But I do think both these films, we have to talk about archival footage. Andrei here is a master. You should absolutely check out his earlier films if you have not seen them, like a master of archival editing, gathering archival footage. And for you, Alex, I think this is like one of the first times where you've worked with that kind of material. I'm curious what your methods were in terms of research, in terms of sifting through kind of endless footage, possibly. How do you approach such a task?
Yeah. When I find a structure, I had from the very beginning the idea to have 2 main characters, a boy and a girl. They have tickets to the concert, and they are preparing themselves to go on Sunday to the concert. And I wanted to show them on this weekend, each of them with his journey through the city. And Friday and Saturday, the boy, and on Sunday, the girls. Yeah. It was also because after some historical research, I find the characters. They are real persons from that historical time. It was my old friend Ken Jones who recommended me, introduced me to Jeffrey O'Brien, who is the son of a famous radio DJ of the period, Joe O'Brien, and then I discovered the book of Judith Kristen, a known Beatles fan of the period. He attended 9 Beatles concerts in the U.S. here. Yeah. And he wrote also a diary of this weekend. So. And the rest was quite simple to find. I told me, okay, when Jeffrey is a writer, then he was 17. He's a little bit older than me. Yeah, 17, and it was a young writer. It can be an alter ego of mine. So, and then I will make this. I wrote when I was 19 this short story, which is in the movie. Isabella, the friend of the butterflies, listening on repeat the White Album of the Beatles. And in the story, it's a love story. It's not a reference to the Beatles, but my entire emotional feeling for the Beatles is in this text. And I told me, okay, this could be the story. Jeffrey tried to write this short story in this summer. He was blocked. He couldn't make it. And on these days, on his journey through the city, he begins to hear his auteur voice in his head, and the story begins to write. And when I show on Sunday Judith with her girlfriends, I told me the audience can discover quickly she's probably the character of the short story the boy is writing. So on the very end, you can ask yourself if she really existed. Is a real person, or is only a projection of his head about the character from his short story. That's why on the very end, with the sound, we come back in his room in Manhattan, and you hear the typewriter, and he finished to write the story, and she transformed herself in a butterfly like it's in the story and disappeared. Because maybe she was from the very beginning only in his imagination and the character of his short story. Yeah, that's
when you have
the story of the film. Yeah.
Oh, for
yeah.
sure.
And with archival material, it's difficult to make it short. On the very beginning, I had here a good group of researchers in New York put together by Ken Jones. Then I have a group in Germany where I was at the university as well, and I tried to look on historical material from New York generally, or because I was thinking, like everyone, it was the peak of the direct cinema. You must see the Mason brothers pictures, Pennebaker, etc., till Andy Warhol and so on. But then I remember, and I saw all these pictures, it was also the golden age of the American news report and American reportage, yeah. With wonderful cameramen shot on 16 millimeters. The CBS people were the best in the time. And more of that, it was the correspondent of the National French Television, ORTF, was here in Paris, Jacques Salbert, from which we have a lot of wonderful material from Harlem, this interview with this French-speaking gentleman, all the images from the Jones Beach. This is all from is Jacques Albert material. He has at the time a show which was broadcast in France on prime time, Saturday night on 8 o'clock, twice in a month, every 15 days. Yeah. And the show was, he prepared a long reportage about some team from here. The cafes, the beaches, the Harlem, and he had a wonderful cameraman called Tony Duval. Yeah. Wow. And we find this material at the French National Video Archives, and so, yeah.
No, it's an impressive.
And for the second day, for Sunday and the World's Fair, and so, because I had the idea that Judith, the main character, make a kind of video diary of this important day for her, to try to find 8 home movies, 8mm home movies. And I discovered, and I was very confused, there are almost none really serious or big 8mm movies archives.
Really?
No. And nowhere. There are some collectors, and my assistant, and in fact head of research from Germany, told me, a young man, she told me, let us look on eBay. And we have a look on eBay, and we discovered tons of material, hundreds of hours, and we buy the lot of them. I think 300 hours. Summer pictures, New York, from 64, 65. So, and then with a group of students, I gave them to make a selection of this, and this is the second part, the 8mm part of the film. Yeah.
Somehow it's profoundly depressing to me that eBay is the best archive for 8mm film. That's eBay being the archive for 8mm.
Yeah. eBay, the real archive for 8mm film. Yeah, because it's a sad thing, like in America, so frequently the kids are. Go out from home and living in another city, in another business, and when the parents are dying, they are coming back to liquidate to sell the house and liquidate all, and then they put the memories of their parents on eBay. This is really heartbreaking. Yeah.
It's how about your archival footage?
Well, it's not as interesting as that, but we're also
I'm sure it is
30 years, into the future, into the video filming. I mean, so we had the participation of 2 people in the film. One is this guy named Lance Bangs, who's one of the film's producers, and he was proxy to, he was there with Pavement basically from like 95 to the end. So in those 5 years, he has untold hours of footage. And then we found later someone else named Deb Pastor. And Deb had been with the band also around that time. And, Lance made a Pavement documentary 25 years ago called Slow Century that we had the DVD of. And Robert and I in the edit were like, well, we can't use anything. I mean, not because he won't let us, but like fans have that. They've seen it. Maybe something you come up against where you're like, well, I'm not going to use this well-known clip because this has been seen in 5 other things.
Right.
Not that there's 5 other things about Pavement, but we were just like, what didn't you use? What else do you have? So then 2 things happen. One is that we have the same idea on what's interesting, which is to say Lance films an interview with Stephen Malkmus. At some point. And what he used in the edit is the interview. And the second Robert and I saw the footage, I texted him and I was like, so this entire thing before the interview starts is incredible. Because the camera's rolling and they're just not doing it yet. And he's like, I just watched it. I had the exact same thought. We have to start the movie with that. And it's like, we just had the same instinct of like, we both are interested in like, okay, we're going to turn the camera on. Oh, there's a plane passing overhead. Oh, like, should we go somewhere else? Like, should we move outside? And we were just like, this is incredible. This is what you'd cut out of anything if you're editing the first movie about someone. But if you're editing the second movie, this is what you want. And we just looked for stuff like that. Because that's a revelation if you have it, and you have to be someone. You have to be someone for that to be an interesting thing.
Of course, yeah.
To just have the quiet moments, the moments that typically get put, edited out, and we just wanted stuff like that, and we found a few of them, and then the second part of the answer is like, supposedly the band wanted not a documentary filmmaker, but a screenwriter. Someone who would just approach their story narratively rather than simplistically. So then if I'm coming into this as a screenwriter, the challenge with archival material is not what's cool, what's great. It's what beat do we need? What do we want? How do we manufacture it if we don't have it? What VO can we pull the audio from and put it over another image to create a secondary meaning? Because we can do that. We're not making direct cinema. We can do whatever we want. We're pulling podcast interviews from 2 years ago and putting them over footage from 30 years ago, just to say like, yeah, this is someone who's reflecting, and we're going to show you what they're reflecting on. It's the old, simple, but that was the approach to anything archival. Was like anything's fair game. That stuff is non-chronological. Like just use whatever the moment needs. Talking about their relationship with other musicians. Just go to a shot of them. Doesn't matter if it's 1990 or 1997. Like just if it's a good shot, it's a good shot. Put it in. Like it just doesn't matter. Like it's the image, it's the edit, and it's the story beat. It doesn't have to be historically accurate. It doesn't matter. There's so much stuff in the movie that like when people at the label watched it, they were like, well, you're saying this, but this is 97 and not 90. We're like, yeah, we know, we don't care. Like it just doesn't. It's beyond irrelevant. It's the right beat for this moment.
I think both of you have long-standing relationships with your editors. You with Robert Greene, Dana worked with you on Ceausescu. I'm curious about how you guys definitely have a shorthand, I would imagine, but I'm curious what the kind of conversations you were having with each other, because especially for a movie that is so rigorously edited, both of these movies are, and I'm curious what kind of I don't know, maybe. What are the conversations having where the editor kind of disagreed with your take, or some kind of conflicting emotions going on? Why don't you start out?
Yeah, my answer will be different because like we created most of this footage.
Right.
Obviously, I'm answering this archival question, but I mean, it's a couple things. One, Pavement are Robert Greene's favorite band, and they have been since he was in college. And in his opinion and in his recollection, he's been waiting his whole life to edit this movie. And I believe him. And my making of the movie was so geared towards the creation of these stunts, these moments that we were fabricating, in some cases, to document, that at the conclusion of all that filming, I simply said, I have no idea what we shot or what we need at all. And I actually, like, it's not that I don't care. It's that, like, I'm all ears.
Right.
There are some things, like, this thing happened, it has to be in there. But generally, it was like, I don't know, because I've never made a movie where we have in play, 200 hours of footage. Typically, we're lucky if we have 30. And it's always this shot, that take, and this was more, I don't know. Like, it could be whatever.
Right.
And for someone who's been waiting their whole life to edit the definitive Pavement movie, he was very eager about this. And he really he rolled up his sleeves and it was all during the writer's strike, so I had nothing to do. And he honestly, he lives in Missouri. And I've gone there to edit with him before. And he just said, please don't. Like, please, I want to be alone with this process. I want to be alone with this footage. I want to be alone at my desk, and I want to be alone with this edit. I will send you stuff every day that I have time to export it. And that was kind of what I did the entire writer's strike all of last year, basically, was just watch cuts and talk on the phone constantly. And yeah, we never once sat in the room together. We did, screen sharing and stuff sometimes, but not really very often. And just because he just had a better handle. I mean, he's a documentary filmmaker and a documentary editor. He knows what to do with hundreds of hours of footage. I don't. And I said, I'm all ears. And he said, well, fortunately, this is my lifelong ambition to make this movie. So I know what to do. I remember this interview and I know what to do with it. I remember this line from this concert bootleg. So I know what to do with it. Stand back. And I just said, okay. And we had arguments, plenty, but I don't really remember any of them. It was more just like, the arguments are just, I want to cut this.
Right.
Or I refuse to let you cut this. And let's argue about the validity of that. And except for a few, lines or jokes or beats or, those things can be seen again someday. It's not like they're deleted forever.
100%.
So it was kind of interesting. I mean, I liked it as a process. It's certainly easier for me, which I liked. But then rather than like sitting in a room and having conversations, I'm just twice a week having to stop what I'm doing to watch, a 3-hour edit and then have a 2-hour conversation about it. But it was fascinating just as an inexperienced nonfiction filmmaker. And, you just got to trust the right people.
Would you do something like this again?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
If he was editing like a documentary about not his favorite band, I might not trust him so much, but I would love that.
Yeah.
I would love I would love a year and a half of editing that I never have to leave my house. I would do that.
Andrei.
Yeah. Here with twist, it was different. Yeah. In a big long Ceausescu movie, 3 hours, and so with so much material, and so the challenge was to read the film of the history in this mountain of material, and then to put him together. But when you try to make narrative archival films, the entire things transform it. It's you try to find pictures they were shoot for you, as you have sent a cameraman in this at this time at this place, and to find the angles and other things, and to make a completely new edit as for own footage. Here in Twist, it was because when I had the historical narrative of this 3 days, with the Beatles arriving in the city, the premiere of Help, their film, in the same week. The film come out on Wednesday, and they arrived on Friday. And then the Watts Riots in Los Angeles and the World's Fair in the city. Okay, this was the historical pattern of this weekend. And when you want to show the complexity of all this together, you must have to find the images for this. In the first time, a part of the film where we used this real documentary material from ABC, CBS, and NBC, and the French one, the challenge was to edit this so fluently as a normal narrative, because you have characters there moving through all these things with intervention in material. We didn't shoot this, but we put things the drawings,
The animation,
and for example, at the Times Square on the evening, because in the same summer came out the old Woody Allen film "What's New Pussycat." I put a poster of "What's New Pussycat" there, and then I put more. Announcement of help of the film at Times Square than in reality was, and a kind of I don't know light a promotion of the Shea Stadium concert.
Yeah.
There are all things, but then on the next day when we have this long shot on 7th Avenue, and he here in the radio, the Dan Ingram interview. In reality, this shot is, I think, from 2 years later, from 67 or so. So I was obliged to change some big poster on the buildings to not to have some posters from 67 or and in the second part, in the 8mm things, there we interviewed. It's like to almost to recreate this image, this images. Yeah.
I think we should open it up to questions. If anyone has a question for either Alex or Andrei. A mic will actually be coming around real quick. Give it up for the lovely helper.
All right, my name is Nico, and I myself, back in the day when YouTube was decent, I guess, I used to watch a lot of documentaries online. Two of them that come to mind. You know, I'm also a very big Pavement fan, and two films that come to mind is one was the VHS with Sublime, where they had the archives. And I haven't even seen the Pavement film, but now I'm very intrigued to know more about it. So I was wondering, like, how does a film compete with, like, say, another one that comes to mind? I saw this one obtuse one with Modest Mouse in like Seattle or something like that, and Elliott Smith showed up. And it's just like, I always like these types of films, so now I would like to know more. Like, how do these types of films compete with other type of archival type films? You know, like, what is the outcome of these type of films, and what do you want to see from these films?
Geez, what happened to YouTube? You said it used to be good.
Well, they used to have a bunch of free films. I used to watch The Three Ninjas online. You know,
Okay,
they
so
used to have a bunch
I
of
see,
free
that's what
films,
happened.
and then the copyrights came in.
Yeah,
You know,
took-
back in like '09 or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
We would be watching YouTube and be like, is this going to be like taken down like Napster? You know, you didn't even know. You know,
They took
So-
Three Ninjas away from you.
They did. Yes.
I see.
And I'm a big fan of that film.
As am I.
Oh, the Pavement, Three Ninjas, we're gonna be getting great. you
Yeah.
know?
And then they struck back.
Yes. And they took down the documentaries too.
Yeah.
That's
No, I
also
mean,
what
I
I'm
meant the
getting
Three
at.
Ninjas struck back.
Yeah,
not
I was
YouTube.
about to say.
I mean, what you're describing, so you're obviously younger than I am. You know, in like the early 2000s, when I worked in a video and record store, you know, like 2004 to 8, or 2000 even to 2008, like every band, indie bands, like there was just DVDs flooding music stores of every conceivable band. There would have been a Modest Mouse DVD. Who needs that at the time? Right. Modest Mouse fans.
Well, I'm gonna put it in there. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I grew up in Bangor, Maine. You know, I was born upstate, but I grew up in Bangor, Maine. It was really hard to get DVDs and all this, so that's one of the reasons why I would rip something from like LimeWire or like, you know, YouTube or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, there was just so much of that at the time in the final days of analog media distribution. At a time where like the presentation of your band's visual content would have been limited to what could be on a DVD. Maybe there'd be 2 hours of music videos on disc 2. But now a band could have their own YouTube page with 50 hours of content on it. They could put up a little behind the scenes video of every stop on their tour, a 4-minute video every day. We're in New York, we're in Philadelphia, we're in New Jersey, we're in Virginia. Every day they could be putting up this material, whereas, you know, what you're watching when you were younger and what I was watching was like just a finite loop. And that's what the other Pavement movie is that this guy Lance Bangs made. You know, it's a 2-hour movie on a DVD, and disc 2 is a concert, some extra footage, 15 music videos. And that stuff is fun if you're a fan. But like, it wasn't, forgive me for saying this, but it's allowed here, that wasn't cinema at the time. And it still isn't. Like, none of those things played at a film festival, played in a movie theater. Those were designed to be a video companion to your fandom of the band. They're designed to be on your TV, on DVD, or on YouTube. They don't make those anymore because YouTube exists now. So they don't need to make these things. And therefore, in my opinion, obviously the Beatles, they have 20 films made about them. They have cinema. Rolling Stones have cinema. David Bowie has cinema. Like, there are artists from the pre-Yours and My era that they had films, like real films made about them, films made with them. And then that just kind of went away because the marketplace, in my opinion, was such that, like, you could just press the DVD. It cost 10 cents to press and sell it to a fan for $20, $30. So what's interesting now is, like, no one wants that anymore because that material is valueless because it just should be on YouTube, and it is, or on social media, and it is. So when an artist does something like this, you do have to aim as high as you can, in my opinion. Some of these artists will just make a streaming play and make a 2-hour streaming documentary that's very sanitized and autobiographical. Fortunately, the band I worked with wanted anything but that. And that's where there's an opportunity. You know, I mean, what you've done is, like, I don't think a diehard Beatles fan would want to add your movie to their collection of Beatles DVDs. It's for people at the film festival to consider your approach to 1 week in 1964 America. It doesn't belong next to the Beatles anthology, Help, and A Hard Day's Night. It belongs next to essay films about the 20th century. And this, to me, is the reason to make something now or to seek out something, because there's just an opportunity to say, like, we're not trying to put your DVD in every record store on the DVD shelf in the B section. We don't need, that's not what the distribution of these films is ever going for. So therefore, why not just make a film, like an actual piece of cinema that's in play?
Well, just real quick comment. Like, you were talking about how they used to sell them back in the day at, like, you know, $20 as for like a 15-cent DVD. I think about when, you know, recently I bought myself, you know, this is kind of off topic, but I bought myself a 50-cent CD, and it came with the DVD and the CD, and that was a first print. So I really think we need to come back and sell DVDs with CDs and first prints and something like that. I feel like something's missing here with connecting visual with audio. I might be mistaken.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're not wrong.
I know. I mean, I think that's,
Yeah, I like, you know, like first editions comes with something. I don't know, but you know, I kind of miss those days. You know,
I do. I mean, I do. I made a concert movie that came out earlier this year, and it's only streaming for now, and soon, you know, it'll be on Blu-ray at some point. And fans are dying to own it.
Right.
They're every day asking, when's the Blu-ray coming out? They want it. You're right, but that's a very specialized. You know, not every artist has.
Because who wants to steal something from, like, YouTube, you know, as opposed to actually having, like, the T-shirt and the DVD and whatnot. You know, I didn't mean to be off topic, but
I think we got another question if there's anything else.
Hi, I'll try and make this less about myself. I've seen both your films, and I want to say that, Alex, your film, it was perfect for someone like me because I know about Pavement, but I loved what you did with it. I love the fact that you had the feature film, the faux feature film, which brought so much humor to anyone who knows anything about the music or what was the music business. And the fact that it was a lot of inside baseball stuff, but so I certainly learned a lot. I missed all of Pavement. I live in London, so I wasn't around. There was no YouTube and there was no internet, so I missed how there was MTV, but still. And Andrei, I very much enjoyed your film too. I actually worked at Apple. I worked in the archive on 8 days a week, and also early days with the anthology. And the thing I very much enjoyed seeing in your film, the press conference is wonderful. I'm sure you had difficulty dealing with Apple. I know how precious they are about their material. It's a finite amount. And yes, they have exploited it forever and ever and ever, and so they should. But where was the King Curtis footage from? Is that from the French? The King Curtis?
The King Curtis. Where did the footage come from?
The King Curtis.
Yeah. Did it come from the French archive, or did it?
Yeah, I was just curious because I'd never seen that, and it was amazing.
King Curtis. The King Curtis. The King Curtis. It's not only the sound on the closing credits.
Isn't he perform? There's a performance in it.
I believe there's a performance of King Curtis.
Yeah, with
The performance from King Curtis. You saw an audio?
yeah, it's in your film.
Yeah. But it's not in the final version of the film.
I thought there was dancing and. We both saw it together, and we think it was there. But.
When you saw the previous version of the film with images from Shea Stadium and with 2 acts from the pre-concert, the discotheque dancer and King Curtis, this is from a BBC edit of the footage. It was showed in '65 for the Ed Sullivan by the Ed Sullivan production, but it was a commissioned work for the company of John Lennon, Suba Films.
That's Brian Epstein's company.
At the time. And in the end, these images this edit from belongs to Apple. Yeah. And they didn't want to give us, because in the end they say we have our own plans. Okay. I hope they are better than usual. And that's why there are no more in the final version of the film, which was projected there. And King Curtis is in the film now only with because he was playing at Will Small's Paradise Jazz Club in Harlem when Jeffrey spent the night, and it's a poster in the window when and the music on the closing credits is King Curtis, but the footage with King Curtis no more in the movie.
And thank you for your compliment. I didn't get a question, but thanks.
But there is no real biopic with Jason Schwartzman. I mean, it was hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, if we stacked up all of what that was, which we did for the fake movie premiere scene, it's like 65 minutes. But it's not all a movie. It's a table read.
Right.
And we patched together. Yeah, But the fact that you could get this far, having seen the movie and coming today, and still be wondering that is very, very positive to me. Because the sort of answer to your question, like, not that, well, whatever you want to.
No.
Our title card at the beginning is like, to celebrate their return.
Yes.
They're having a musical, a museum, and a biopic, and as that sentence goes on, it gets less and less true.
Right.
And that was the conceit of the movie. Is like, we want to put a title card on. Like, I saw, do you know Joe Berlinger? Is it Berlinger or Berlinger, who directed the Paradise Lost films? Saw him do a talk, and he was like, there's nothing more honest that makes people feel like you're watching a documentary than text on a screen in a documentary. If you do that, people think it's true. And I was like, yeah, that's a great point. And we put this thing on there, and the sentence, which is like, 30 words, starts off true, and by the end is completely a lie. But it's because you were lured in by the truth. And then it is a documentary, and it's text on screen. Most people just assume it's true. We were like, this is funny, and this will get to the point where someone will be like, I want to watch that movie. It doesn't look very good, but
for your consideration, flashing all the time.
Yeah, I'm glad that stuff gets a laugh.
I think we have one more question, and we're probably gonna have to wrap it up.
So congratulations to both of you. Great films. My question is for Andrei. Felicitări. Film minunat. So You mentioned that this documentary took around 10 years, if I understood correctly, and then that it started with you thinking that you want to capture the story of a boy and then a girl who don't know each other but then meet at this concert. Though in the second part of your film, I mean, I just want to know how you decided on choosing that specific fragment from Judith's book where you have several girls. So was it because of the World Fair, or if you can talk a little bit about that, and then the voices that you used for the girls in the car, and just the challenges that you encounter in making this documentary?
When I understand your question, I must to confess the entire dialogues of Judith and the girls written by myself. It's nothing from Judith's book in the film. There are some words, some expression from the diaries and the biographical information that she's coming from Philadelphia with his mother to New York, and then she meets her two friends, Shelley and Carol, and they're going to the concert. I also didn't know if they were on the World's Fair. This is our construction. But the entire dialogues and my preference from the entire film when the girls are in the monorail and are talking about romanticism and this, they're already they're my dialogues. Yeah.
Well, I think that's about our time, unfortunately. This has been a lot of fun, but thank you guys so much for coming. If you can give a round of applause to both Alex and Andrei, it'd be great.
Thank you.